Yeah, so welcome to yet another video on discrete mathematical structure, and today we'll try to finish this set theory and we'll move to new topic relations most probably in our next video. In our previous video we had covered power set and we had a discussion on multi-set, and we also talked about something called as infinite set, where we said that a set which is not finite, and although we were talking initially we were talking in everything in terms of finite numbers as well, but here we said that no, there exists a terminology, so where we can have, for example, I can have a set of all real numbers, and this is something which is like an incountably infinite set, so that can be termed as an infinite set. Then we also talked about equivalent set, or if not, then I can once again introduce that particular part as well. Oh no, I can recall that yes, we covered equivalent set. We also said that the equal sets and equivalent sets are two different things. There is a minor difference between that particular thing. So I'll skip that particular discussion, and then we went for solving some questions, and we also talked about a very interesting paradox, which is Russell's paradox, that is also called as your Barber's paradox. I gave you a homework as well. I guess some of you might have gone back and looked into the history and must have searched about Russell's paradox. And then we talked about partitioning of sets. And in today's discussion, we are going to talk about something which is called as your fuzzy set. Now, since we are saying fuzzy for the first time, so before that, let's try to understand the meaning of this term fuzzy. Right, so basically it means something which is like difficult to perceive, something which can be vague, it can have, a frizzy kind of appearance and lacking clarifications. That can be, some of the synonyms. And in mathematics, here especially in set theory, what these fuzzy sets are, these things are also called as your uncertain sets. Uncertain sets. So once again, that means we are introducing uncertainty. Uncertainty here means that something which is not clear. Right, so the basic definition for this fuzzy set is that it is nothing but a generalization of ordinary set. Ordinary set means the ones which we have been continuously studying throughout this particular discussion. So all those things are nothing but the ordinary sets, and in this case we are generalizing it. So we have certain applications of this fuzzy set. So we can have, like, they have applications to human cognition, cognitive science these days is like very popular area of research. It has applications in the field of communications. It has applications in the area of decision analysis. Psychology. Medicine law. Information retrieval, yes, another very popular field where people are focusing, where researchers are giving lot amount of inputs. They are giving lot amount of, they are showing lot amount of interest as well. And etc. Let me add this because the usage are, infinite in number these days. So in your fuzzy set theory, not set theory, this time I am saying in fuzzy set theory. Every element let's assume X in the universal set U has a degree of membership which can be written as, let's say, du of X, we'll say, where this degree is in between 0 and 1. So somewhere you might connect it with, let's say, probability, that you may say that okay, this is something which is lying in between 0 to 1, so in some sense we are inclining towards probability, but here we'll not use this term at this moment of time. And this fuzzy degree, or you can call it as once again du of X, indicates the degree of fuzziness. Just like in your entropy theory, right, degree of randomness, that is called as entropy. Here we are saying degree of fuzziness, that is given in terms of your du of X. Now, so this, let's assume I have a fuzzy set S. So a fuzzy set S is denoted by listing its elements along with their degrees of membership. That means an element with 0 degree of fuzziness or let's say membership, right? Here, since we are introducing the term membership over here, so let's use this term membership. So an element with 0 degree of membership is not listed. Let's take an example so things will be much more clearer in this case. So, for example, let U be the fuzzy set of wealthy people. And or maybe let's not take U, because we had discussed in the very beginning that U stands for universe of discourse. So let's not confuse ourselves, let's take S. So let's say S is equals to, I have Tom space 0.4. With this figure 0.4, you might have got an idea that this is something which is your degree. Then let's say I have Harry 0.6, and let's close this. So in this particular example, the D of S here, because we have introduced this thing, this particular term, which is let's say this thing. So here let's introduce D of S, which is for Harry, this is equals to 0.6. That means degree here is, degree of fuzziness here is 0.6, and this measures Harry's degree of wealthiness. So I have this element Harry, and it has degree of its membership. So in classical set theory, the membership of element in a set is assessed in binary terms. In this case, we said that membership will be somewhere in between 0 and 1. So fuzzy sets are, we can say that the fuzzy sets, so this is something which is an important point. Fuzzy sets generalizes the classical sets or the ordinary sets. Now, since we are talking in terms of fuzzy sets, and we have observed in our set theory that any set will have a subset as well. Right, it may be a simple null set, but there will be a subset for an available set. So in this case also, we'll have a fuzzy subset. Right, we'll have a fuzzy subset. So let A and B be two fuzzy sets. Then A is a fuzzy subset of B if A is a subset of B and the degree of fuzziness of an element X in A is less than degree of fuzziness, or you can call it as membership, of the element of which is X in B for every element X existing in A. Right. So previously in set theory, I had this simple concept: A is a subset of B, where there will be some elements of A which will be there in some element in the set B. Here I am also adding this particular example. So let's see one example, add one example to our discussion, then things will be much more clearer. Let S equals to, let's say B 0.6, M 0.5, and let T x equals to B 0.8, J 0.3, M 0.5, and let's say M 0.7. In this case, what I see is I am fulfilling this particular criteria and this particular criteria as well, because on one side I have like two elements B and M available. So here it is, and here it is. On top of it, there is a mismatch, and which also is matching this particular condition of fuzzy subsets as well. This particular condition of fuzzy subset as well, and this is depicted here. I have 0.6 here, I have 0.8 here, I have 0.5 less than equals to, so this is also correct and this is also correct. Right, so in that case, S is a subset of T. So the thing to note is that the concept of an ordinary subset can be extended to fuzzy sets as well. Right, it can be extended to fuzzy sets as well. Probably with the help of this example, you might have got some clearer picture on fuzzy sets. Now, just like in case of your classical or ordinary sets, we observed that there were possibilities of certain operations on fuzzy sets, on ordinary sets or the classical sets. So in case of fuzzy sets also, we can observe some of those operations, and it can be implemented almost similar to the way which we studied in case of your classical sets. So your operations on ordinary sets can be extended to fuzzy sets as well. So for union, intersection and complement, what all options we can have? So union which is like A union B, where we'll once again talk about the degree of membership. Degree of A union B for each element x will be maximum of degree of an element x in A and degree of an element x in B. This was about union. So here what we'll do is we'll see in terms of degrees, right? Whichever is greater, that would be added. The other one is your intersection operation. So there we have like A prime, where I can take A complement as well. Degree of A prime, this you can make a guess, right? That would be 1 minus degree of the element x in A, right? So if suppose we have a degree, let's say 0.8, right? So in case of complement, it would be 0.2. The next one is your complement. Sorry, I made a mistake. This was your complement, not intersection. And we'll separately talk about intersection. Here. So we started with union and we went to complement, where I made an error by writing it as intersection and explaining it as complement. Now let's talk about intersection. So it will be like A intersection B, where this degree A intersection B for x will be min membership in A and membership in B. So here we'll be taking the minimum. Unlike in case of union, where we were talking about intersection, here we are talking about your minimum value. Now, we'll also have the computer operations with set. That means we can have one can be your AND, that is nothing but A intersection B. Then I can have OR, that is nothing but A union B. Then I can have XOR, which is nothing but A set difference B. Additionally, I can have a complement operation, which can be your A prime or AC, anything. Now, since see, one more thing to notice, that this particular thing I am talking in terms of sets, right? We are done with the discussion on fuzzy set here, and that's why I have written it as set. Now this was like computer operation. Another thing we can have is your computer representation of sets. So let's see the computer representation of sets. You might have, or not might, you for sure have covered the array representation and linked list representation. So this time, here we are talking in terms of sets. Obviously, we are dealing with sets. So this time we are talking about computer representation of sets. Now, how to represent? Let's say I have a universal set U. So this will be represented by, let's say, since it is universal set, it will have all the possible values. So this will have like 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 everywhere. Right. Let's take one example of a different set, a regular classical set. So I have a universal set which is like A comma B up to, let's say, H. Or let's not take universal because we have already discussed the universal set separately. So let's say I have a set A which is, I have A and B, let's say G. I have a set B which is, let's say, C comma E comma H, and I have a set capital C which has like A comma B comma C comma D comma E comma F comma G comma H. So this is like, if you carefully see, A, B and C, and we are taking it as, let's say, 8-bit string. In this case, I'll get let's say C, which is one, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Then I have A, which is also in a similar format. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And then I have C, which is also, since it's like 8-bit string, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. Now, and this is, let's say, for A, B, C, D, E, F, G and H. So for C, what I have like 1, 1, 1 in everything, 1, 1, because C is like A, B, C, D, E, F, G. For A, I have like in A, I have 1, in B, I have 1, in G, I have 1, in rest, I have 0. For C, I have like, sorry, this should be my B. And B is like C, E, and H. So in C, I have 1, in E, I have 1, in H, I have 1, in rest, I have 0. Right, so probably all those things which exist, that would be 1, which does not exist, that would be 0. And that's how your computer representation of sets is done. Now let's take another interesting topic, which is your recursively defined sets. Now this is something which is a new way of defining sets using recursion. Now recursion, I am sure everyone has done. In C programming you do, in data structures you use it. Right, now here we are talking in terms of your set theory. So let's take an example. So I have the set of numbers as, let's say I'm taking the same set S, which is in a form of, let's say, 2, 2 to the power 2, 2 to the power 2 to the power 2, 2 to the power 2 to the power 2 to the power 2, and so on and so forth. Now this set S has 3 interesting characteristics. What these characteristics are, which are like interesting in nature, that I am going to list it. One is for sure 2 exists in S. Second is if X exists in S, then 2 to the power X exists in S. I hope you are with me in this particular discussion. One is like 2 exists in S, of course I can see that. And if suppose X exists in S, that means 2 to the power X exists in S. Thirdly, the third interesting thing is every element of S is obtained by a finite number of applications of properties 1 and 2 only. I hope you are getting this point, that firstly we said that 2 exists in S. Then we said that if x exists in S, then 2 to the power x also exists in S. And thirdly, we said that every element of S is obtained using a finite number of applications of properties of 1 and 2 only. From these 1 and 2, I will be able to get, with a finite number of applications, I will be able to get the entire thing. What we are trying to say here is that from these 3, I can get this particular set as well. So, your recursively defined set, or maybe you can say a recursive definition of a set S consists of following 3 clauses. What these clauses are? One is the basic clause the basic clause explicitly lists at least one primitive element in S ensuring that S is non-empty. That there exists something in S, because if suppose S is empty, so I don't have to give a thought on coming up with a recursive definition. In that case, I'll be fine with whatever I have. Second thing is the recursive clause which establishes a systematic recipe to generate new elements from the known elements. And the third clause is the terminal clause. Which is nothing but establishing a systematic recipe, or maybe we can say that this time it is guaranteeing, because I need to terminate it, right? So it is guaranteeing that the first two clause are the only ways the elements of S can be obtained. The terminal clause guarantees that with the previous two clauses, which are your basis clause and your recursive clause, I'll be able to obtain the entire S. So you can say the terminal clause is generally omitted for convenience. Now let's take one example, so the things will be much more clearer, right? And you won't believe that this recursively defined sets are forming a building base, because we will pause here only, but this is forming a building base for your theory of automata, and that takes you towards your compiler design as well. So let's say I have a language, because in theory of automata we will be dealing with your languages only, which is in a form of, let's say, a comma aa comma ba comma aaa comma aba comma baa comma bba comma so on and so forth. And this language consists of words over the alphabet which is a comma b. That means that the language consists of combination of a and b's only. So in that case, what we have is recursively we'll define that A exists in L, and if A exists in L, then AX comma BX exists in L. That's how you recursively define it. Let's take one example. For example, A, B and A, right? It can be constructed using, let's say, A exists in L. Now choose X equals to A. Now I have like Bx, which is equals to Ba, which also exists in L. And let's say if I have like X equals to Ba, then Ax will be Aba. So I am getting this ABA. That means it is a part of this particular language. Once again I am repeating this so that the point will be much more clearer. We got this particular language where I have like A, B, A and so on and so forth, and we said that this is ranging from the alphabet, which is a combination of nothing but A comma B. Now in this case, if how I am recursively defining it, A exists in X, sorry, L, then AX comma BX exists in L. This is where I have done. Now, for let's say I took this particular instance of ABA. So if A exists in L, which is from the first thing, then I have like X equals to A, and I have like AX and BX which are the part of A, which is the part of L. So BX will be like BA, which is also a part of L, which is proving from here. Now the next thing is, because see from this I'm getting, now the next thing is, this time I have like X equals to BA, and with this AX I'm getting ABA. That means this particular thing I'm able to prove this particular part. That's how we recursively define the sets, and as I said, this is forming a base for your finite language theory, which is your automaton, and which ultimately takes you towards your compiler designing, where parsing and other stuff you're going to learn. And with this particular discussion, we finish our initial part of our first unit, which is your set theory, and we'll see some more examples related to set theory in our tutorial classes, and from the next video onwards we'll talk about another interesting topic, which is your relations. See you soon.